What's up guys, welcome back to Destiny Updates. We've got some exciting news coming out of yet another post-GDC interview, as well as a few other things to briefly mention, so let's get right into it. So let's start with the interview. It comes from the UK's official Xbox magazine, and it's got a few exciting things in it, starting with factions. Now Destiny has 4 factions. These are New Monarchy, Dead Orbit, FWC, which is Future War Cult, Seven Seraphs, and Osiris. There's also a 5th possible faction called FOTC, and we've seen this engraved on weapons in the Vidoc, but we don't actually know if this is a faction or not. Now these 4 factions were actually revealed a good while back on t-shirts and such, even back before Destiny was actually confirmed. But I never actually covered them because that was back before the channel was active. Also before now they weren't actually confirmed, it was just speculation. Now back to the article. They were asked if identifying with a faction now, so far before the game's launch, would have any consequences in-game. And they replied, probably the best thing to say right now is the factions that we've released, they are real factions in the game. So if you find yourself drawn to one of them artistically or the name, you'll definitely have opportunities in the game to, I'd say, heighten those associations. So there's solid proof that the 4 factions we've seen are actually real factions in Destiny and they are confirmed. Personally, I think PvP is going to be handled by factions and that's going to be the purpose of them. I imagine when you join the faction of your choice, it'll be enemies with some of the other factions and then you'll have to fight members of that faction. But that's just my opinion. We don't actually know the full purpose of the factions yet. We'll have to see. But just judging from the names and logos I've showed you, which of the factions do you think you want to join? I'm interested to hear your guys' thoughts, so let me know in the comments. Personally, I'm not really sure. The Seven Seraphs seems pretty cool, but so does New Monarchy and Osiris, so I don't really know. I'll have to wait and see what the different factions stand for and what they mean in game. Anyways, moving on to the next point. This one was kind of a funny little thing I thought I should mention. They were discussing teasing the community with information and such, and Bungie said that sometimes even the mistakes that get out there end up becoming part of the larger lore, usually in interesting ways, but you never really know unintentionally what's going to happen. We released a number of tweets leading up to the game, and in fact we released tweets starting with number 7, and for some reason we didn't release tweet number 6. And I won't go into details why, but suffice to say that the mysterious tweet number 6 that is missing will forever remain in the lore of Destiny. I just thought that was quite interesting that somehow a mess up with a tweet would end up getting into the game in some way. Now obviously we don't know how, but it's still interesting. Moving on, they discussed how players can craft their own stories, which is a point Bungie's been trying to push. Now until now, we didn't actually know what they meant by that, but we finally get some details here. Now they discussed 2 ways that players can craft their own stories. Now one of them is simply remembering the awesome encounters you've had in game, particularly those with friends, and all of those encounters added up end up creating a sort of story or legend of what you've experienced in game. Now personally, I think they might be going a little far saying that that's crafting your own stories. That's really just your gameplay experience in my opinion, not really a story per se. I think they may be over-glorifying it just a bit there. Anyways, they said the second kind of story you'll be telling is one you wear. One you've put together over time. The gear you carry, the weapons you have. One detail we really didn't go into too much was just the variety of looks and combat abilities that you'll have. And so when you encounter someone in a public space, they're going to look different from you. They're going to play different from you, and they're really going to be quite different from a characterization point of view. Now this one I quite like, we mentioned it before, but just the ability to customize your character so much that you actually have your own identity that's recognizable. It's just awesome and I hope they pull it off as well as they're saying. Now moving on, they were asked about customizing your character by way of loot drops or rewards, or even crafting. Unfortunately they said they couldn't talk about crafting, which is one of the things I really want to learn more about. Now loot drops were already pretty much confirmed, as were rewards, but they once again reiterated that here. Now they also said, we talked about the tower and the ability to buy things like ships. Now it was already pretty much confirmed that we could buy ships, but now we have even more proof. Anyways, they also said, so I don't think it's too far of a leap to assume that you'll be able to buy gear and weapons in the same way, shape, or form. So that's kind of a given, but now we pretty much have proof that you'll be able to purchase things in the tower or the city or something like that, as well as the loot drops you'll already have in combat. Now moving on, they were asked a question that I see a lot, which is, are you able to put in callbacks or fan-pleasing nods to earlier games? Basically references or Easter eggs to Halo. Now unfortunately the answer didn't seem too hopeful for this. They said, we haven't talked about this in any formal way, but that's a great question. If I were to think about it for a second, I'd say we really aren't planning at this point to do many callouts or references to things we've done. I mean, one, for practical reasons, we don't own Halo, it's not our thing anymore, so we can't. But I think more importantly, we're all eager to create something that's big and new, and spawns its own references over the years, and really do something that's distinct and stands on its own 2 feet. So they're not saying that there won't be anything, but it definitely doesn't sound too promising. I hope they can get around the legalities and at least put some Easter egg in there though. Moving on, they discussed Grognok, which is Bungie's new world design tool that we saw in use at GDC. Now I'm not going to go into too much detail, but they basically said that Grognok is an amazing piece of technology, and it allows them to create awesome worlds really quickly and easily, saving the design team a lot of time. Now the final thing in this article that I found quite cool is that Destiny's cinematics will reflect the current time of day in the world. So an example might be you get into a long cinematic right as the sun's going down, and then as the cinematic is playing, the sun keeps going down and it actually will get dark in the cinematic. I thought that was pretty awesome, and I don't think I've ever actually seen it before. I imagine there's probably some MMOs out there that do it, but none that I've played. So that's it for the OXM article. We got a lot of good info out of that one. Now there was also an article over on AUS Gamers, or AUS Gamers, not sure the proper way to say that, but that's Australian Gamers. And they went into a lot of detail about the story and world design in Destiny. Most of it's stuff I've already talked about, but they just went into greater detail. And I'm not going to go over it in this video just because it's a long article, and like I said, I've talked about pretty much all of it before. But if you want extra details, I'll leave a link to that in the description and you can read it yourself. Now there is one more thing to mention in this video, and that is in the Destiny character development trailer that was released at GDC, there were a number of points where a bunch of concept art would come on screen very quickly and you really couldn't get a good look at it, and a lot of people probably missed it entirely. So Bungie.net user The Sharp Spoon posted screenshots of all of these on Imager so you can get a good look at all of them. You can see them all here, and I'll leave a link below if you want to look at them in more detail. And man, I have to wonder what the hell that thing is. She's frickin' ugly. The only thing that comes to mind is like a Hive Queen, or maybe the Fallen, you know, the figure kind of, but I don't think so, I don't know. The other thing, it almost looks as if she's floating in a way. I mean, I don't really know, but I mean, I have to wonder if that could be the Glimmer, because I would imagine the Glimmer would float, but I don't know, I really have no idea. Anyways, there will be a link in the description if you want to check these out. So that's it for this update. I hope you enjoyed the video. These videos do take a lot of work, so if you did enjoy, then a like would be very much appreciated. It really helps me out. Anyways, thank you for watching. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on all of the latest Destiny news, and I'll see you in the next update.